Hello, it's Carrie-Anne from the Science Booth, and we are kicking off our month of experimental by looking in detail at the anatomy of an egg. We're going to dissect an egg. Now you can do this with any sort of egg. This is just a chicken egg that I've got from the supermarket. So I've already cracked mine open just so I've not got sticky hands whilst doing this. But before you crack your egg open, you can have a really good explore of the shell. Okay, if you've got a magnifying glass, you could have a really close-up look of the shell, and you may notice lots of tiny little holes or tiny little pores. Now, this shell has got quite a bumpy, sort of grainy appearance that you'll be able to see if you look closer. And it might have thousands and thousands of tiny pores. Now, the shell is made of a chemical called calcium carbonate, which is actually really, really strong. And we'll see in the coming month how strong eggshells really are. Now, all these little pores mean that the eggshell is actually quite permeable to certain things. Permeable means that things can pass through. So moisture and air can pass in and out of the egg. What you can't see on the surface of the egg is something called the bloom or the cuticle, and this is a really thin layer that helps keep out bacteria and dust. This often gets washed off, but yeah, that's there to sort of protect what's inside the egg. Now, if you have a closer look at your eggshell, you might notice you can see this sort of white thin sort of layer. Okay, this is a membrane. It's actually made up of two layers, I think, the inner and the outer membrane. So this is lying between the egg shell and the egg. And it's made of protein. It contains a material called keratin, which we also find in our hair and nails. And if you give it a tug, you'll actually find out it's really quite strong. So yeah, that's really interesting. And if you do the egg dissolving in vinegar, you get rid of this bit, but you're left with this protein bit, and that's what kind of holds your egg together. Now, if we look inside, it's usually the larger end of the egg. If we look inside, you can see down at the bottom, we've got a little pocket. I've just ripped mine there, but we've got an air cell, okay? And that kind of forms once the egg is being developed. So it forms when the egg's being made, and when it cools and contracts after the egg is laid, that's kind of when the air cell kind of develops even more. And that gets larger as the egg gets older. So if you've ever tested whether an egg is fresh or not, an old egg will float, and that's because that air sac starts to get larger. Okay, so that's a little air cell down there. So we'll just pop our bits of egg down there and we'll have a little look. Now, you might already know about some parts of the egg, and if you like to eat eggs, you might know which bit of the egg you prefer to eat. So you can't see it so well because my egg's spread out a little bit, but we've got a thin watery layer, we've got a thicker layer, and then we've got the lovely orangey yellow layer. So we'll start from the outside and work our way in. Okay, so the white of an egg is called the albumin, and this comes from the word albus, which is Latin for the word white. And there's actually 4 layers, even though we can only see 2. You have 2 thin watery layers and you have 2 thicker layers. And they're made up of mainly water, but possibly about 10% protein as well. And this would form part of the food for a chick if a chick was developing inside this egg. You've also got, and this is more pronounced in newer eggs, you've got the chalazae or the anchors. Can you see these white stringy bits that are at the top and the bottom of the yolk? They look like sort of white, stringy, weird bits. Okay, these are the chalazae or the anchors. And what they actually do is they hold the yolk in place in the center of the egg. They're literally anchors. They're holding the yolk in place so the yolk stays right in the center of an egg. And the more prominent these are to see, the fresher or newer your egg is. Around the outside of the yolk I'll explore this a little bit more in a minute when we've looked at everything. You've got something called the yolk membrane or the vitelline membrane, okay? And this is what's holding the yolk in place and keeping it all in one little sort of little ball, okay? The yolk itself, which is my favourite bit of an egg, the yolk itself has obviously less water than the albumin, than the white of the egg. And it has a lot of protein, fat, vitamins and minerals. And this is where, if a chick was developing, most of its energy would come from. This is sort of like its little feeding sack. So yeah, that'd be a nice source of energy for the chick to develop. Because imagine a chick gets fertilized in the egg and it starts to grow, and it doesn't receive any more nutrition until it is born, until it hatches out of the egg. So this has got to provide all the nutrients and sort of water that a chick is going to need to grow. Now, the last thing I want to show you on the yolk before we pop the yolk is this little white disc here. You should be able to see it, not this reflection from my light, but there's a little white disc here. Okay, and this is the germinal disc. This is the germinal disc. So this little spot here, had this egg been fertilized by a cockerel, this is the little patch that would have developed into a chick. So this is the germinal disc. Okay, so when you eat an egg, you're not eating a baby chick at all because it's never been fertilized. Okay, but had it been fertilized, this is where the chick would develop from. Now, I said around the yolk, you've got a membrane, the vitelline membrane, and I might be able to just show you that in a bit more detail. So if I might be able to, you can sometimes grab it. Okay, it's quite hard because it's quite slippy. I don't think I'm going to be able to, but you can have a go at trying to grab. It's quite fun. Make sure you wash your hands afterwards. You can have a go at trying to grab the vitelline membrane. I'm not having much luck, but I will have a go at breaking the vitelline membrane. So when you break the vitelline membrane, you can see that all the yolk spills out. But yeah, there's definitely more to eggs than I imagined. I just thought we had the white and the yolk and that was it. But yeah, to recap, we've got our shell made of calcium carbonate covered with a bloom. We've got a inner and outer membrane made of protein, one of which is keratin. We've got the air sac or the air cell at the large end of the egg. We've got 4 layers of albumin, 2 watery ones, 2 thick ones. We've got our yolk, which is held in place by our chalazae or our anchors. We've got the vitelline membrane around the yolk, and then the little white spot on the yolk is our germinal disc. So yeah, the next time you're looking at an egg, it's a lot more interesting than we thought. And if you're doing this egg dissection, I hope that you're having omelettes for breakfast, lunch or dinner. I can't wait to see what you guys get up to next. Happy Egg Month!